Chrissy, I had a young lawyer call me out of the blue yesterday and asked me, he was thinking about getting on radio and asked me how I got started.
Aw,
And
that's great.
yeah, I told him I've been doing it for a long time. So 1986, if you do the math, that's 38 years, right?
Yes.
America's longest running legal radio show.
Congratulations.
And I know you know the story, but it's worth repeating every once in a while. And that is 1986. I was a young lawyer. I became a lawyer in 1981, so I've been a lawyer for 5 years. And, back then it was all about listening to the radio when you're driving around in your car. No podcasts, no CDs. I suppose there were some 8-track tapes back then, but it was a lot about listening to the radio. And as a young person back then, I was listening strictly to rock and roll radio. My mom lived in Orlando, and she was listening to talk radio, and she heard a talk radio show, and she called me up. She says, Tom, you should offer to be their lawyer expert on that talk radio show. And I went on and, went back, and was a short time after that, they offered me my own radio show, and that's how it got started.
I think, again, thank you for sharing this story. And I think it's really wonderful that your mom was instrumental, the inspiration for you having your own radio show and having the longest radio show now in the country. So think about it. Really, you were ahead of your time. There was no attorneys doing radio back in the day. And so very special. Of course, fast forward, there are many more attorneys doing radio. However, it's interesting because it's really evolved and that's why I'm curious about this young lawyer asking you, because even though I know you may say, oh, not as many people listen to the radio, I'm sure as you radio listeners out there, certainly can say, now though, there's more opportunity. So in addition to your car, which was the primary back then, now people can listen to the radio live or podcast on their smartphones, on their tablets, on their computers. So in a way, you have opened up a different avenue and more people, if you will, are listening because, again, podcasts, right? So that puts in, they start listening to radio, live radio as well.
Yeah. Well, I want to say that you and I both know that on a regular basis we have people that tell us how much they enjoy listening to our radio show.
Absolutely.
And how much it means to them, and they go out of their way to make sure that they listen to our radio show. And for that, we're very grateful. We have a lot of loyal listeners out there.
We have a lot of loyal listeners, and we really appreciate it. As a matter of fact, yesterday I was finishing up with a client, and two clients walked in our lobby, and I overheard them speaking to Julie, saying, because they were here for Edgewater title for closing, and I heard the one man say to the other, oh my gosh, I've been listening to attorney Tom Olsen for 25 years.
Yeah.
So again, and we hear it all the time. Again, thank you, listeners, for being loyal and wanting to tune in. And certainly here over Central Florida, you have given the community the service of providing them with free legal advice on the radio every Saturday, again, for all these years. So thank you for your service to the community.
Well, I love doing radio. If I didn't love doing radio, it wouldn't work. And so I'm just, what makes it super nice is that you're joining me now on the radio.
Thank you, love. Thank you.
I do want to say a part of the story, and that is that for the first few years of radio, so we're talking about mid-'80s, late 80s, I would always have a guest on the air with me, and that meant that I had to, search out a guest. I need to meet with the guest. I need to prep the guest, et cetera, et cetera. So there's a bit of work to it. And I had a producer that said, Tom, I don't want you to have any more guests. I want you to do nothing but answer legal questions for people.
One minute.
I heard him, and I had the next week I had a guest on. My producer happened to be there and goes, Tom, why is that person here? Why is that guest here? I told you you're going in that studio all by yourself. Ooh. So I finally got it, and the first time I went into the studio by myself. It was very, very, very nerve-wracking. But I'd called my friends and family and given them a list of legal questions for them to ask me, call me on the air, just to make sure I wasn't, all by myself. And hey, there you go. That's the way it started. And after that, there was never an issue as far as getting phone calls and legal questions.
I love it.
Yeah,
Thank you for sharing.
Well. Yeah. Hey, folks, my name is Tom Olsen. The name of the show is Olsen on Law. You're listening to News Radio, WFLA. We're going to take a break. We'll be back in just a few minutes.